Kevin Sheedy is one of Australian Football League's most enduring figures. A player and coach over 5 decades, Kevin has unsurpassed record of involvement in the game, over 1,000 games and 8 premierships. His accomplishments don't end there. He has pioneered significant innovations that transcend the sporting arena into community engagement, fostering equality and reducing discrimination. Welcome, Kevin.
Franco, how are you?
Yeah.
Amazing how we end up online over different circumstances that have hit the world with the coronavirus. Obviously.
I know it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? How do you describe it? You know, how would you, in your living memory, would you have experienced anything that resembles anything that we're going through at the moment?
Look, I haven't, obviously. Look, growing up, I was born in 1947, so by the time you're 5, you sort of know you're in a life, and but there's not much happening in 1952, 3, 4, 5, that sort of period. I mean, no one had a telephone, no one had a car, so I've been sort of in a little bit of that void there after the war years. No one had TV till the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
So there was a period there where you're probably fairly isolated, Australia anyway. We were a very small country. We didn't have 25 million people. We hadn't developed like we had. So I've been just a touch of it, where we never had toilet paper problems. I mean, I don't know what we're eating these days, but when the toilet paper goes first, I'm worried about the nation, you know. But, you know, no one had a telephone, as I said, you know. It was just such a different life in that first 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
It just gave you a smidgen of not a lot going on.
Yes, yeah. And I guess people were a bit more connected too, weren't they? And their families, they spent a lot of time with each other, didn't they? I guess as well. Like,
Yeah, well, we had 40 kids in the street, so we were pretty busy.
They're connected.
A little Catholic school down the road. It was in the suburbs in Melbourne, pretty similar to Brunswick or South Yarra or that area, you know, in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And look, being in the army for 2 years, you were fairly isolated, and it was just one of those things that in the end, you know, you'll take it away from your normal life and you're on sort of 3 months without meeting anybody in recruit trainings in national service, and you'll go to Sydney and not quite Revesby, but somewhere near that area, heading down to Milperra and Casula. And I was there for another 3 or 4 months in corps training. So that was a very different period of my life too. So I'll just look back and think they're the experiences that I actually ended up getting. And to me, it was...
So how are you and your family experiencing coping with it at the moment?
Pretty good. I mean, I'm on an acre next to 5 acres, so I'm pretty okay with space anyway. Most people think I'm a bit of a loner, but until
why do they say that?
Well, you know, I don't. I probably am a bit of a bookworm. I write books. Love my gardening, and you know, I've got a few mates and friends, and we get out to see them sometimes. But some people enjoy their own company, and I'm probably one of them.
Yeah. Okay. And so, just around you. So I saw that Sam was there. So is that? So are you sort of getting like are you isolating a bit, or how do you?
No. We have my wife's had to take my daughter's just had twins, so we've got a bit of a house at the moment. Sam's here, myself, my wife. So there's 5 at the moment, but my daughter lives with her husband still, but he needs to have privacy in his work job, sort of thing. So. Because he's working in the stock exchange areas. So
yes, of course, difficult time at the moment.
Their apartments become an office like yours has probably, and my home is an office like anyone else. So, but look, that's a difference, but it's not, it's okay, it's good.
Yeah, okay.
Coming online talking to you is good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think that's a good way of connecting, isn't it? I mean, I think one of the things that actually people we've interviewed for this program in a way is sort of one of the things they come up with is actually connecting with their kids in a way that they haven't been able to do. I had Ray Chamberlain earlier today.
Well, I'm never home a lot, to be honest. Because I run basically with a public speaking company, and I work at Essendon a couple of days a week in the development areas of off field. In creative areas. Some of the big games we've actually been able to achieve, and the country basically was, this was brought up for. This is why I come back to Essendon from Sydney, from the GWS Giants, is to start the country game 5 years ago after what then drought problems and water problems will become bushfire problems.
That's right.
So we had Anzac Day up and running to remember our defence forces. We've got Dream Time at the G, which is a fantastic game to connect with our Indigenous people that have been here, probably the longest living race of people on Earth. So that's so we've got a 95,000 crowd, 85,000. The country game we thought would be 80,000 this year to bring out all the Country Fire Authority fighters and march them on the ground at the MCG, which would have been and still is a beautiful idea when we can achieve that.
Yeah, well, we'll get there, won't we?
Yeah, they're the sorts of things I enjoy doing, and basically thanking people.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to just sort of start there in a way because, I mean, just thinking about the time, you know, around regional and rural communities, the droughts, the bushfires, now COVID-19. Where would you reckon we start with those communities to deal with that cumulative stress that the eventful events that they would have had over a period of time? Like, you know, what's your...
Well, look, it's very awkward because we got slammed with this COVID-19 and we were ready to and pretty well prepared to look at saying, what can we do for the bushfire families? I actually drove through Gippsland about a month and a half ago. I couldn't believe the amount of highway that had been burned out.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Yeah.
And so my father is from just out of Bairnsdale in a place called Mozzie Face, Booth and Wiseley.
Yeah.
Sarsfield, they got burned out. So we crossed through to now and up the coast. And I could not believe that probably 450 kilometres of the main number one highway in Australia was burned out. I just could not believe that. When you actually go and physically see it.
Yeah.
I come back, met some people in Bairnsdale, and we're working on trying to find some money for some people there,
I drove through it about a month ago as well. And I mean, one aspect of it that was burnt out, but also had been growing back too. Like, it's just amazing how it just, like these burnt out trees, but, things are growing off them and stuff like that. So it gave me a lot of hope, but obviously it's devastating for people that are there and have experienced that. So just to, talking about those communities, like what are you hearing from them when you spoke to them about stuff and about what they're going through?
Well, I haven't spoken to a lot of communities, but driving, looking and coming back into Melbourne, because it wasn't that long after that we started to have to look at this COVID-19 world virus that's affecting the world.
Yes.
And then, of course, the games are getting shut down, which means it's an awkward thing for us to try and... Because one thing that the AFL can do is really assist communities, which is great that we actually got the State of Origin game up.
Yeah, that's right.
For them, but we're sort of locked down and we're trying to work out, and this is my club, Essendon, as well as every other club, what can we do to help each other? And how do you go about it in the first steps? And I think the most important thing is to let everybody know, mainly probably through the news and newspapers, which are absolutely crucial communications right now when people love to read their news on their phone or on their computer. But I like to get my newspaper. I follow every day the coronavirus and what it's been doing to the world.
Yeah, right.
And I look back on some of the things that have happened worldwide. So I've got an extensive library here. So here's 100 natural disasters in the world history, which are like unbelievable when you look at what is in that book compared to what is now. So I get a good cross section of where my thinking can be, and if I can help in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. And that's why I'm in my garden. Yeah, that's my isolation, is the garden, the plants,
right. And your refuge and your way of thinking. What did you learn from that 100 disasters? Like, what's your sense of a commonality of issues?
I just cannot believe how many natural disasters have happened in nature in the last 100 years. I mean, I'm talking millions of people dead, hundreds of thousands dead, earthquakes, tsunamis, the whole lot. And I thought I would have known a lot more about them, but a lot of them happen often, every sort of 5 and 10 years, quite often in the same area. Yeah. Probably, I think in and around Indonesia is one of the worst hits, particularly around about Mexico and and around that Panama area, so it's just incredible. It's incredible.
It's interesting you say that, because I reckon there's something about understanding that we're actually part of a history. And like, I know you were very big on history and creating legacy, but like a lot of our community really, in a sense, live in a sense that they feel ahistorical, don't they?
Yeah, I think that history tells you that people don't learn from history.
Yeah.
Great comment I read one day in one of the books, and I thought, gee, what a great! I wrote it down. I've never forgotten it. Certain things attract my attention, and that was one of them. And it doesn't matter whether it's in sport, doesn't matter whether it's in politics, war. It is quite amazing that we just don't often learn from history.
Yeah. So what do you reckon we can learn from this? What do people can learn?
To me, that we need a closer attention to world health collectively, particularly in the countries that have many populated nations. Because they're the ones that, we're probably, in many ways, Australia's isolated by its own oceans around this Indian Pacific and the Arafura Sea. So we're sort of fairly isolated when you look at all the other countries in the world.
Yeah.
And that's not to say we won't get coronavirus because the people travel, obviously. But these overpopulated countries are going to be smashed, and we haven't even seen the real true story yet.
Yeah. What do you reckon people need? What do you think people need now at this moment, you think?
I think they need some, I wrote them down, actually. I did write some things. They to me, they need some belief that it's going to obviously get end. They need to sort of plan their life a little bit now more than ever.
Yeah.
To look at different ways of saying, well, if the Prime Minister's saying our life's going to change, well, then accept that. Don't necessarily fight it. And it's the way you make decisions around your life that helps you and your family for a start. You can sit down and debate it with your own family. But, the world is getting closer, is what we're being told by this coronavirus, getting closer.
Yeah, that's right.
That is. So we've got to look and think smarter, particularly in the field of health. The medicos do a great job. The scientists do an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
But in the end, when you see certain areas of Europe being smashed in Spain and Italy by this virus, gone ahead of Japan, China, we still don't know the right figures of what China's death really is. So then you have the sort of well-controlled countries you see, like perhaps even Singapore, and Japan doing extremely well in regard to the way they organise their health systems and their living disciplines. So they're sort of things we could look at.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know how true this is, but it seems like there's the westernized individual type civilized, cultures versus the collective cultures. Cultures that actually have more of a collective responsibility, and like Singapore, South Korea, where there's a lot more emphasis on social norms and people are able to sort of connect in a way to where individual countries, westernized countries, might find it difficult to.
You talk to people who have been to Singapore and have not been to Japan for a long time, but everybody says the discipline of the way they look after their streets in their country.
Yeah.
That is something in Australia, happy-go-lucky Australia might have to consider over the next sort of 20 years of our lives.
I liked. I was really interested when I was reading through some of your stuff. I actually got a few of your books as well, so I love reading your stuff around the history of AFL. I just love this reading issues around different coaches and your coaches, the 500 game coach. I love that book. It's a fantastic book. But I quite liked your comment around Edward de Bono that you saw a couple of times in Melbourne, and that he taught you to think outside the square. Everyone wants to thinking, and if you really believe in something, just keep working until you achieve it. Just a bit about that in the context of how people are now sort of might some people would be responding to COVID-19 is they're starting to think differently about how do they connect, how they do their work, really innovative stuff,
I think it's a great opportunity to be positive in a difficult and different environment. So from my point of view, I'll be writing books. I'll be reading them. I'll be attending to my garden as a disciplined, probably native soldier would, because I like it. It gives me a lot of enjoyment. To me, I don't expect everybody to do what I suggest,
Yes.
but find out the real you in your life. And I don't think we often do that. We go to work, we do this, we're married, we've got kids. But do you ever actually really sit down and say, who really am I and what do I want to get out? I mean, I'm in the last quarter of my life and I've had a pretty fulfilled life.
Yeah.
But I want to find out who I'm going to be and what I really want to be able to achieve between now and 80. And that is exciting if you look at it from a positive point of view. And so I do a lot of writing, and not to myself, obviously. I do a lot of thinking out there in that garden of mine, and I enjoy that part of it. So I'm not going to tell everybody what to do. I'm just going to suggest that find the real you inside yourself.
Yes.
And see how well you can really keep developing yourself in life, no matter what age you are. Now, I often speak of that at some of the conferences I go and talk to, because to me, it's very important that you deliver and leave something with that individual person, even though it's in a collective group of 100 probably, or 200 in this conference.
Yeah, that's right. So what's the challenge then there for people then to really
don't waste their time.
Don't waste their time.
Sitting around worried. Worrying solves nothing. It's burnt energy on nothing. Get a pad, start writing about the things you'd love to do, you can do still. And I've got a classic, I bought this it's got smiling. Smiling is infectious. You can catch it like the flu. That's amazing. Incredible comment. And I keep it there because I sign all of my autographs with a smile, because it is infectious. You know, if I sign my autograph with a smile to a kid, often 70% often look up and smile.
Yeah.
Positive message, just with a little smile. And of course, you can do that when you meet people. Not that we're out shaking hands and hugging each other at the moment, but
no.
Yeah, smile when somebody's walking down
All
the
right.
street.
Well, I think that's a great message for people. You know, just what's the last question, if I may? You once said that learning's the most important thing. It was very important. And when you were 15, you consciously decided to make football your career, and decided that the secret was to listen and to learn, to study and learn. And it seems like you haven't stopped doing that, really, in that age 73.
No, well, I mean, mathematically, I loved it. My school was opposite the MCG, so every, grade 3, it was probably 55, 56 year, 1955 and 56. All I could see is the Olympic Games, so I thought, well, that excited you because of what's happening. And we hadn't had TV at that time, and and I loved my cricket. Going through my teenage years, thought Richie Benno was a superstar. I was him a lot, and he never let me down. He was an amazing captain of Australia and great leg spin bowler. But the problem was that they only picked 11 in a cricket team and 1 leg spin bowler in the nation. So mathematically, I just had to go to VFL footy in those days, because they picked 20 in a team. 14 of them were my height.
Yeah.
12 teams in Melbourne, and that's 12 14s is 168. So I had 168 opportunities versus 1 to be leg spin bowler for Australia. So I thought, I'll give that the flick, leg spin bowl.
You started thinking, you thought like that when you were 15?
Well, you got to find out who you are, as I said.
Yeah, I know. So you made all that calculation of that. Okay, right. Sure.
Well, I mean, it worked out.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, that's right. That's right.
The difficulty in them was when your career finishes, there's only 12 coaches in the VFL and 6 of them are legends. How am I going to get one of the other 6 jobs?
Well, you got one of them. You stuck at it for so many years. Sorry?
That was a bit more difficult.
Oh, yeah. Well, you stuck at it for so many years, don't you?
I went over to Texas, you see, and found out how those Texans think, Ziggy. No, I did. I went to, in the 70s, I went over to NASA Space Control and met the astronauts, work out how they trained the astronauts to get to the moon to beat Russia. And I went with a friend of mine, Mel Brown, another guy called Todd Shelton. They were much older than me, or a little bit older. And I toured America. As soon as I made it in the Richmond team, we won a couple of premierships, could afford a trip, and spent all my footy money on developing my next part of my life. So that's probably been developing myself has been the best attribute I felt that I've got in my life from other people telling me, to go and listen, go and search, go and chase knowledge and come back and share it, which is what I think good leaders do.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Kevin, we could keep on talking all day, really. And
Ziggy's got other things to do than talk to.
That's right. Ziggy's in the studio. Look, thank you very much. I really appreciate you making time today to talk through some stuff, and it's just an important time to hear from experienced people, but also people that they've got such great knowledge and experiences and able to share that. And I reckon a lot of people are going to get a lot of value hearing that wisdom, but also just in a way in which we help people connect a little bit to not getting stuck in the moment. Just thinking about what's the opportunity there for you. Yeah.
Well, there's 4 I'm going to leave you with. 1, keep smiling and pass them on. Okay. 2, keep chasing knowledge. Listen to music and spend some time in your garden. And love you.
That's great. Thanks, Kevin. Bye. All the best.